Traders, how are you? Marcello here, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader, where you can come and apply to use our money live in the markets for just a process, a test of 120 bucks. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. Don't forget the podcast is available, so a lot of the videos that I'll be doing from now on, even the weekly recaps, will be available for you in podcast form, iTunes, Spotify. It's up on all the platforms. Don't forget to leave me a review. And one thing I wanted to ask you as well this week, guys, I'm here in the Philippines right now. We have a lot of traders here. We just finished the Traders Fair, went absolutely amazing. I think we're going to do great with the traders here, especially being able to find traders to fund. And I wanted to ask you, we have a lot of traders that either speak Portuguese or Spanish, and so I wanted to ask you, I do a lot of interviews with traders that have gone live and have done really well. If you guys want to see those interviews, you know, in Spanish speaking form, but I'll subtitle them in English, let me know if you guys would like that, and I'll make sure to upload them here on YouTube, okay? Other than that, don't forget all the questions, hashtag Ask Marcello. Don't forget to subscribe here to the channel, and also on Instagram, Wandering Trader. I think I might change the name, but for now it's Wandering Trader on Instagram. The overall this week, the overarching news items that affected most of the markets was the trade tensions with China and the US. Trump, more than anything, especially starting on Monday, stocks went down because he basically sanctioned them completely, and a lot of companies like Microsoft and Google basically started saying that they weren't going to do business anymore with Huawei. So this had a lot of implications around the world, because now Huawei is the second largest phone company in the world, and conglomerate, right? Huge conglomerate as well for telecommunications. And so that, more than anything, was why the market went down on Monday, lower on Tuesday as well. And also we had a little bit we had the move down on Monday, we had a little bit of a move up on Tuesday, and then we came back down on Wednesday and literally plunged on Thursday over the concerns of global growth and ongoing trade disputes. The Dow, which is one of the main benchmarks in the United States, went down for the 5th consecutive week, and it's the longest stretch of weekly losses since 2011. The S&P 500, which is the main market that we teach traders to learn on before they start trading other markets, dropped for the 3rd straight week as well. And overall for the week, the markets in the US were negative. The Dow was down 0.70%, the S&P 500 down 1.20%, and the Nasdaq down 2.34%. The Australia Central Bank considered lowering rates in June. Australia, if you guys didn't know, has gone 28 years without a recession, without a contraction economically. They're going to be the 3rd country where the central bank cuts rates for the year, following New Zealand and India. Stocks in India jumped 3.75% on the news that the Prime Minister Modi is well on track to win the 2nd term, which he did win. Surged 900 points. The benchmark index, the Sensex, went up to 40,000 for the first time ever. Asian European shares received some respite on Tuesday after the U.S. actually rescinded or kind of pulled back some of the sanctions against Huawei. That's why even the U.S. markets went up a little bit on Tuesday. Overall for the week, the European markets are mostly lower, with the Euro stocks being one of the biggest losers at 2.24%, and Italy being the other big loser as well, 3.58%. Russian market was the biggest winner, if you consider Russia part of Europe, right, geographically, even though it's huge, part of Asia as well. They had the biggest winning stocks in this week, which was 1.63%. Overall for the week, the Latin American Canadian markets were mostly mixed. The biggest winner was the Merval in Argentina, 5.31%, and the biggest loser was the Bolsa in Mexico, 1.94% negative. Middle Eastern markets and African markets mostly lower. The biggest winner was Nigeria, the biggest economy now in all of Africa, 6.96% positive. South Africa was the biggest loser at 3.23%. And finally, the Asian and Australian markets are mostly positives as well, with India obviously being the biggest winner, 3.97%. And Singapore, one of the biggest financial centers in the world, went down 1.10%. Big news in Bitcoin and cryptocurrency news. The Facebook wants to launch its own cryptocurrency in 2020 called Global Coin. They're having talks with a lot of big American trading houses and also crypto exchanges to be able to go ahead and launch that. This is one of the reasons, for example, that I've always told you guys, especially here on video, that the future, the revolution isn't going to be Bitcoin or the cryptocurrencies, right? The revolution is blockchain. So a lot of people, what they do is they talk about both of them together, but have a look, Facebook isn't using Bitcoin or Ripple or Ethereum, right? What they're doing is they're launching their own crypto, their own digital currency on top of the blockchain. So blockchain is actually what's, in my opinion, what's going to revolutionize the world. Overall for the week, Bitcoin did have an excellent week, went up 12.22% to about $8,097.38. Commodities, crude oils on the rise again after Saudi Arabia and OPEC Plus, which includes more of the countries, for example, like Russia, signaled their intentions to keep supplies constrained after a 1.8% gain last week. The U.S. president continues to ratchet up tensions with Iran, so that affected as well. And overall, oil plunged lower at the end of the worst daily and weekly performance of 2019, after obviously the mounting tensions between the largest economies forced or convinced investors to flee from risky assets. Futures in the U.S. fell almost 6% on Thursday. Overall for the week, U.S. crude is down 6.21% at 59.09. International Brent is down 4.20% at 69.30. And also one very interesting thing, De Beers, which is a very big diamond selling company, their sales have plunged 25%, which is the lowest since 2017, underlining a slump in the industry worldwide. It's been a rough sales for the quarter one this year. Some were down 30% globally, and overall precious metals for the week were positive. Gold was up 0.5% at about 1,285. Silver was up 1.04% to about 1,463. If you guys want to have a look, for those of you guys listening, have a look at the video I did about how I'm trading right now. I'll be doing a lot more video on the Spanish side, but I did a video showing you guys the analysis since I'm trading mostly silver, and I drew a circle kind of where I expected silver to get to. It just got there, so now is when I'm going to be looking for a lot more positions. Full disclosure, it's only for educational purposes. We don't trade people's money, right, because we're not trading advisors, but make sure if you guys are going to do something in the market, whether it's in silver or anything else, that you do your research and do the best things for you, because, you know, don't go buying silver just because I talked about it is what I'm saying, okay? So make sure you do your own research. You guys want to make sure you do what's best for you. In financial news, U.S. businesses have taken record amounts of debt since the records began in 1947, more than anything due to the ultra low interest rates that we've had over the last decade, which is in history, this is the longest amount of time that we've had interest rates at this low, which are records low for this amount of time. Borrowing doesn't matter that much now due to the fact the economy is strong and a lot of people are able to pay down that debt. But the next recession is likely to be brutal because many firms are going to struggle to stay afloat. The Federal Reserve Chair Powell actually saying that highly leveraged businesses could amplify the downturn in the next economic downturn. Firms are basically going to be forced to lay off a lot more workers and come back on investments because they have to pay back the debt. And essentially, if you guys don't remember, the U.S. economy, which is still the driving engine of the economic of all the economies in the world, right? Still the largest in the world, even though China's coming up, is 70% consumer based. So if we have this problem now and more companies are going to lay off more workers, that means that there's going to be less workers to have consumer spending, 70% of the economy. We're going to have a huge downward spiral. And if you guys remember, I've been talking about this about 4 or 5 years now before kind of more indications came through. Deutsche Bank, largest bank of Germany, holds its annual shareholder meeting. Shares hit an all-time low. They're down 41% over the past year. They've been struggling financially since the financial crisis, even as revenue falls faster than they can cut costs. The British pound hit a 2019 low of 126 on Thursday. Time to travel to London, guys, because very soon we might not be able to anymore. Well, in general, right? We're talking about 10 years away. Weighed down by the renewed political turmoil over Brexit. And one of the other things I wanted to ask you guys as well, you know, there's a lot of repeating topics that come up over the weeks, right? So the trade war between China and the U.S., one week they have a deal, the next week they don't, the next week they potentially have a deal, then they don't. And the same thing with Brexit, right? Then we have a deal and they don't. So one thing I want to ask you guys is, I generally try to avoid repeating the same thing if it's just a back and forth issue. So let me know if you guys like it that way so I can talk about other topics as well and things that are going on in the world, or if you want me to kind of repeat what's going on, the back and forth, right? The jostling between the countries. U.S. 10-year notes tumble to lows not seen since 2017 on the trade war jitters and also the overall global growth concerns. The investor demand for U.S. debt rising along with the U.S. dollar. And if you guys remember what I told you guys about the lesson of the inverting yield curves, so the interest on the debt in the United States, when the short-term yield, the short-term interest rates go up and the long-term interest rates go down and they actually invert, that's an indication of a recession. The 3-year, listen closely to this, the 3 years at 2.36% as of right now, 25th of May. The 2 years at 2.15, so 3 month, 2 month, right? 5-year 2.12% inverted, 10-year 2.32% inverted. The only one that's left is the 30-year, which is at 2.75%, and it's still kind of encroaching in. So definitely an indicator of a potential recession coming up. Hope you guys have a good job, or you guys have the ability to be able to make money in the markets. Real estate investing, for example, is going to be absolutely atrocious coming up, but with trading or the financial markets, you guys can actually do better when the things go wrong. Recent bankruptcy of the airline WOW airline has hit the Icelandic tourism and economy. The Iceland, if you guys don't know where Iceland is, you have the United States and Europe. Iceland is right about here in the middle of the Atlantic. I actually was able to see the tectonic plates when we went diving. It's actually pretty cool to see if you guys ever get the opportunity to do that. The central bank cut its main interest rate by 0.5 point to 4%. The economy is set to contract 0.4%. compared to the actual expectation before, which was growth of 1.8. So it's a big, big downturn for Iceland. Mexico's economy contracts in Q1 2019 and went down 0.2% in Q4. Deals a big blow to the new president Obrador, which, remember, he's on the left. He's a bit more of a I don't know how you guys call it or want to call it in Mexico. He's leaning more to the left or more socialist. And he's continuing to try to drive investors and the thought process of investors that he can boost growth in Latin America's second largest economy. Remember, I'm never going to get political on this show, whether you are left or right, capitalist, socialist. I'm just going to report the facts. I even told you guys that the new president wouldn't be good for the economy. I actually have friends in Mexico. He actually raised taxes and certain things, and now they're looking to leave Mexico because the taxes have doubled. So just keep that in mind when you guys are going to go vote for your president, depending on what country you're in. In trade news, President Xi Jinping of China visited a rare earth metals facility. If you guys don't know what rare earth metals are actually very rare metals that come from the earth. They're the biggest producer of these metals are in China. They own a huge percentage. Obviously, the U.S. prefers that China produces it because of the environment, et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of speculation now that because of what's happening with the trade war between China and the U.S., that China may actually weaponize the rare earth metals because they might say, well, we're not going to export to the U.S. anymore. And then the U.S. tech companies will have a problem because they can't get the materials they need to make a lot of the technology that they make. Trump rolls out a $16 billion plan, does not need congressional approval to be able to help farmers hit by the trade war. Soybeans, corn, and sorghum actually slumped, and they hit by the flooding of the Mississippi, and also fell to their lowest prices in over a decade. The U.S. is proposing tariffs on goods and countries found to have undervalued currencies, further assaulting the global trading practices. He's saying that they're not going to let U.S.-based companies seek anti-subsidy tariffs on products from such nations. In technology, drones are about to start policing the skies. A lot of international ports, or the world's busiest ports, are going to use drones to be able to try to supervise and also enforce the violations that some companies try to do, especially possible environmental rule breakers, and cut air pollution as well by ships. The SpaceX Falcon 9 launched 60 satellites for the new plan that Elon Musk has called Starlink, which is a plan by him and his company SpaceX to be able to launch up to 12,000 satellites around the world to be able to give high-speed internet anywhere in the world. In investment news, new U.S. restrictions are dealing a blow to Huawei. So that's basically the whole overarching news that happened this week that affected the markets overall. Remember that Trump gave them 90 days. He pulled back a little bit on the restrictions, but the problem now is the Huawei, the second largest cell phone maker, smartphone maker in the world, and huge conglomerate, telecommunications conglomerate, now is in very big trouble because they rely hugely on Android, which is the operating system in the majority of the cell phones in the world, and Google Play, where the App Store is. So there's a lot of even cell phone companies like T-Mobile or AT&T in the world, not only in the US, that actually don't even want to buy Huawei products anymore. So maybe it was a kind of bigger plan by Trump to be able to do this to them. We'll find out in the future if that's the case. Following talks with the FCC, T-Mobile and Sprint are giving the U.S. government commitments to include asset sales and rules service guarantees to help approve their $26.5 billion merger. There's obviously concerns about competition since we have 4 big telecommunications companies in the U.S. and this is now going to go down to 3. Looks like the merger will actually pass. U.S. Energy Secretary Perry says that sanction bill is going to come in the not too distant future for restrictions on firms involved in the Nord Stream 2 energy project, which provides direct access to Russian gas to German consumers. So it's literally a pipeline that goes from Russia directly to Germany. Trump warns Iran not to threaten the United States or face ruinous consequences as tensions mount. He said that if Iran wants to fight, it'll be the end of Iran. And Trump also said in a tweet to never threaten the United States again. Erdogan, which is the president of Turkey, also said that the U.S. is going to have to accept sooner or later the fact that they bought the Russian missiles, the S-400 missiles from Russia. They're also going to look to jointly produce the the new next generation S-400 missiles. This is a big spat, if you guys didn't know or watching this for the first time, due to the fact that Turkey's part of NATO and they should be buying missiles from the U.S. and not Russia. And then the unusual facts this week, the Mississippi River, which is a major artery in the United States for U.S. transportation of commodity, has a record 135-day flood stage as of Friday, cutting through the heartland and the bread basket of the United States. It's a major barrier that they may open only for the 3rd time in history to help the overflow. But that if they do that, that's obviously going to cause potential flooding in Louisiana, and also heavy rains are going to cause the Mississippi to flood over the top of the Morganza floodway. Reaching Mount Everest for the record 24th time on Tuesday, Kami Rita Sherpa, 49, reached the Mount Everest for the 24th time, so it's a record now. He wants to ascend he's already ascended the 2nd time this week, and he said that he wants to do it one more climb before he retires. He's only 49 years old. I mean, you know, never too young to just climb the highest mountain in the world. And in an unusual bipartisan moment, U.S. Republicans Senator McConnell and Democrat Senator Kaine introduced a new bill that's going to raise the federal minimum age to buy tobacco products and e-cigarettes to 21. So not very good news for you guys that are minors. And a senior UN Secretary expert said on Tuesday that the risk of nuclear weapons being used is at its highest since World War II, calling it urgent issue that the world should take more seriously. That's the news for this week, guys. We're going to continue here in the Philippines for another few weeks. I'm going to head to Malaysia later this week as well with Dominic, our trader out here, our master trader in the Philippines. All of you guys that are in the Philippines that are watching, I love you guys. All of you guys in Southeast Asia, DTA is here showing you guys that you guys should be trading futures instead of Forex. Let me know if you guys have any questions. #AskMarcello. We'll see you next week.